The market dropped at a level of resistance. Whoa, who would have thought? In today's video, we're going to take a look at what the next steps are for the market. Why the market dropped. In yesterday's video, I clearly showed you guys the S&P, the NASDAQ, and the IWM were all at major daily levels of resistance. Simple. In today's video, we're just going to look at what the next steps are. What levels need to hold for a bullish move? What levels need to hold for a bearish move? We're going to diagnose. We're going to put a scalpula. We're going to put our little stethoscope to the market to get a nice little heartbeat of what the next steps are. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at the large tech stocks, the VIX, all the indices, and we're going to piece everything all together. So I hope you guys enjoy. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and let's get started with the video. Oh my God, what an intro. Stethoscope, scalp, oh my gosh. Very, very creative. Oh, man. All right. Anyway, S&P 500 futures. Very, very simple. We were looking at this trend line. Trend lines, once they break to the downside, become levels of resistance. So this trend line, we've been monitoring it for a very, very long time. For everyone that's new here, hello. We've been monitoring this trend line for a very, very long time. This is the top of the rising wedge as we broke to the downside. Now it's acting as a level of resistance. So on Friday, right, this large green candle, this was a result of the Fed meeting, right? We ended up closing right at that level of resistance, right at this trend line. And what do you know? The market decided to get a little bit of a pullback. So that's normal, okay? Very, very normal occurrence. But the next step of what I was showing you guys was this candle in and of itself. What we did was we took the fib levels of this candle from the lows to the highs. And I showed you guys the levels that needed to hold for a continued move to the upside. And very simply, as you can see, it held the 38.2% fib absolutely perfectly. This was a clear-cut level of support that needed to hold in the market for a continued move to the upside. And I mentioned that the two levels that would really need to hold for a continued move to the upside is the 38.2 or the 50% fib. I don't know why I just started to sound Russian. The 50%, okay. 50% fib right here, right? As you can see, we wicked right at that level. This is the futures, right? Futures, we wicked right at that level. But now, disregarding the futures candle, okay? So this is the futures candle. We're getting a bit of a bounce at the 38.2, okay? So now, disregarding this candle, this is clearly not a very bullish. This is clearly not a very bullish situation, okay? So this is today's close before futures opened. Futures open at 6 p.m. Eastern time. This is today's close. The level that needs to hold is the 38.2 or the 50% fib. Currently, we had a huge drop to the downside intraday, literally 20 minutes ago at 8 p.m. Huge drop. And it completely bounced back up. So clearly, we're seeing some buyers here between this 38.2 and the 50% fib. This level needs to hold. Clearly, right now, on the daily time frame, this is not bullish. For a really, really bullish move to continue, we need to see a break back above 65.75. If we get a break back above 65.75, then it shows continued bullishness. If we break below the 50% fib, not looking good. Not looking good. We might continue dropping pretty aggressively, okay? Very simple. First day outside of a bearish move, and we're going to see if it continues lower. Nice and simple, okay? Not the best opportunity to try to go long just yet. All right, so what I first want to do is I want to take a look at the large tech stocks. Can we do that together? Awesome. All right, so Apple, clearly holding the 23.6% fib. Not showing a lot of strength. We needed a break above 230. 2 days in a row, we wicked at this level of resistance. Failed to really break above. Not looking too hot. We need to break above 230. Nice and simple. If it fails to break quickly, right, then we could see another move to the downside on Apple. And this is clear cut, it's really trying to hold support for its dear life. And if 225 breaks to the downside on Apple, we're going to see like 214. This is going to be a really, really devastating move, in my opinion. If 225 breaks, I could be wrong. But in terms of a day trade, if this was the 1 minute time frame, bro, if 225 ends up breaking, I would be I would be trying to lean short with tight stop losses because the momentum would be catastrophic generally to the downside. In my Discord group, many times I would say, look, we're going to end up vomiting. We're going to end up vomiting if this level breaks to the downside. Almost every single time I've said that. I don't think there's ever been a time where I said that if a level breaks, we would vomit, that we didn't actually end up really vomiting. So this is something that is occurring on the daily time frame. And if you guys are interested in learning how I do my analysis, the trades that I take, you guys get access to literally every single trade that I take, back test everything, put it on your charts. You guys could see when I'm entering, when I'm exiting, the levels that I'm looking at, the levels that need to hold for the move to continue. I write out all of that in detail. So if you guys want access, click the link in my bio. If you guys are enjoying this video, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate everyone's support every single day. All right, but that's that for Apple. Let's continue on with the rest of the tech stocks. All right, so this is Amazon. I'm getting good at this YouTube stuff, man. I'm getting really good at this. At this rate, I'm going to end up getting sponsored by like Olive Garden or like Celsius, something like that. Anyway, Amazon had a big move yesterday. Awesome. Failed to break above the bullish level at 230. Simple. Apple also failed. Amazon also failed. Nothing really to see here. If 226, 225 can hold, then we will continue to rise. If not, then this is going to come back down to 223, 224-ish in my opinion. Amazon is one of the most bullish stocks. Not GoGo. Google is also one of the most bullish stocks. And as you can see, it is... I don't know why this is trying to be edited. I like you the way you are. All right, anyway. Google is very bullish, clearly. It made a new high. Disregard this. It broke above 208. So as you can see, right? We were hesitant because it was wicking and it didn't close above 207. Today, we finally got a solid close above this major level of resistance. So Google clearly showing some of the most strength in all of the tech stocks. Another stock. So essentially, right, to move forward, Google needs to hold above this prior level of resistance. Very simple. If it could hold above 207, and more specifically, if it drops a bit lower, it should be finding support around 203 to 204. Below that, it's cooked. But aside from that, if it holds these levels of resistance, these levels of support, Google has a lot of room to the upside. So another stock that's also doing very well is Tesla. Tesla continued to hold 340. It came back, retested 335. Nice and simple. Prior level of support. Came back 335. Held. Ended up making another high. If it can hold above 342, we're going to continue rising. Nice and simple. But we are getting to a very major psychological level of resistance at 351. Keep that in mind. Tesla is coming to a very major level of resistance. And what we can do here is this was a falling wedge, right? We looked at the entire market earlier, right? Falling wedges are extremely bullish patterns. We got a nice bounce to the upside. Nice and simple, right? So now that Tesla is coming to a level of resistance, this is not the best time to really start to go long. I'm expecting a bit of a pullback to maybe 340, 338 before we continue to move to the upside. Overall, all of these dips are good buying opportunities, and Tesla is continuing to also show a lot of strength. Another stock that is also showing a lot of strength is Netflix. So Netflix got a nice little bounce. It was one of the biggest losers. We were holding this level of support it was trying to hold for the best of its ability. It was trying to hold at 1200 and it held. And today we got a big spike upwards We need to get a close above 1220 on Netflix. If it can break back above 1220 and start to stagnate, show some strength, it needs slow, steady, foundational strength. If it can do that, then we can see above 1265 in the short term. But it needs to be slow. And there needs to be a nice, steady, it doesn't need to be slow, but it needs to have steady growth to the upside with a nice, strong move towards the end of the week, most likely. We need to get a strong move on Netflix towards the end of the week. If that doesn't occur, then it's going to make new lows. All right. Very simple. Now, what I really want to look at is obviously we have earnings on Nvidia on Wednesday. And what generally tends to happen into an earnings date, so Nvidia and AMD, clear cut strength into earnings, in my opinion. There should be an earnings run up. And what that means is heading into an earnings date, the price of the stock tends to be bullish. So we have earnings on Wednesday. Almost always heading into Wednesday, Nvidia should be bullish. Okay, 9 times out of 10, that's generally what ends up happening. If Nvidia is going to be bullish, AMD should also be bullish, and it should help the rest of the tech stocks do a little well. After Wednesday, if Nvidia's earnings are bad, then this whole bullish move that we saw on Friday due to Powell, the speech and everything like that, would just be fake. Because if Nvidia has bad earnings or flat earnings, the market can really start to just pull back a bit. And I think, I'm not sure what's going to end up happening with earnings, but I do know heading into Wednesday, there should be an earnings run up. So be careful about being extremely bearish on tech. Be careful about being extremely bearish on Nvidia as well, specifically heading into Wednesday. All right. And AMD, obviously, it's not going to get as much love as Nvidia, but, AMD is still trying to hold support. A lot of strength in chips is going into Nvidia because it has earnings on Wednesday. So AMD is down 2.5% today, still holding support. It needs to get a solid break above 167. Doing individual analysis on AMD right now is a bit useless in my opinion, because a lot of AMD's movement is going to be dependent on Nvidia. So with that being said, Wednesday, monster important day in the market. Meta, I drew this yesterday. We bounced. We continue to bounce. We're holding. This looks like what? If you guys have been watching this video, what does this look like? It's holding the 38.2% fib, right? And it closed above the 23.6% fib. So this is very, very important. And what we're doing is why we're looking at the fibs. What the hell does she? What a fib? What are you doing? All you simply do is for a continued move, you take the Fibonacci tool, you draw it from the bottom of this candle to the top of this candle. And a continued move to the upside would be as if the 38.2 or the 22.6% fibs can hold as support for a continued move up. That would be extremely aggressive buying pressure. And currently that's what's going on with Mr. Zuckerberg's stock. And clearly, it essentially really just needs to hold 747. Wow. So if it could hold 747, right, it's going to be a continued move to the upside. Otherwise, if it genuinely breaks below 742, if it breaks below 742, I don't think this level of support is going to be strong enough to hold. And this would end up being a really solid break to the downside on Meta. And Microsoft is also holding support. Not really much to look at on Microsoft. A lot of these stocks are either at levels of resistance or they're at a level of support. And can't really do much about that. The VIX is starting to bounce a bit, right? Obviously, we came back down to this major level of support. $14 is a very, very major level of support. As we know, the VIX has an inverse relationship to the market. If the VIX is bouncing, it means the overall market is going to be falling. The VIX skyrocketed 4% today. And the market, what was the market? It was red. So we were at a level of support on the VIX, and we bounced. Very, very simple. So the level that needs to break to the upside on the VIX is 1550. If we can break above 1550, we could retest 17. The higher the VIX goes, the lower the market goes. And essentially, it's not a great... So we looked at the large tech stocks. Cool. We looked at... We just, simply just take a look at the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ also closed... it's trying to hold above a major level of support and resistance. This futures candle is red, right? But just acting like this candle doesn't exist, right? This was a bearish reversal. Everything came exactly to a level of resistance on Friday, right? Just bring it back on Friday, right? This big green candle bounced exactly to a major level of resistance. When everything closes algorithmically at a perfect level of resistance, you have to expect a sell-off. This was a bit of a sell-off that occurred, and it looks... We don't know what's going to happen into tomorrow morning, but clearly some weakness on the ES close, on the S&P 500 close, right? Some weakness on the NASDAQ close. Can't do much about this. So now we're going to see if this can continue. On the Russell, for example, this was also a bearish close. This is not a bullish. This is not bullish. This shows bearishness. And this really, really shows a lot of bearishness. I would not want to be long on the Russell. For a day trade, this is setting up for a massive spike lower. Being short here on paper makes a lot of sense. I could be wrong. I'm correct 90% of the time. Going short here would generally be a really good short opportunity, especially with just having a tight stop loss. It would be a really high risk-reward trade. Obviously, in the short term, you have to contextualize things. When you're looking at something like this, why would Hamid go short here? It makes sense not to be short, right? Because clearly, like in the very, very short term, we just had a monstrous bullish move. But generally, this is bearish. This shows extreme bearishness. The IWM also literally, when you're just looking at the IWM, we came right to a fib extension level at the 1.618 fib. Closed exactly at that level. Not only did we close right exactly at the IWM's fib level, the NASDAQ's fib level, and the S&P 500's trend line. So everything literally came exactly to a level of resistance. The IWM, massive red candle for the day. Not the best time to be long, especially what do you want to try to go long into a falling knife? No, you would rather try to go long into a level of support. That's essentially what I'm expecting to happen. The IWM has a bit more room to go to the downside. And the only saving grace, in my opinion, for the market as a whole right now is Nvidia's earnings. Otherwise, this is a very, very major... This is a pretty bearish setup. The market just wants to fall over, in my opinion. This is really setting up for a move lower. The market wants to fall over. And what we can really, really do to get a much better understanding is we could take a look at crypto. Crypto is falling over. Crypto is coming to levels of support, but we just broke below on Bitcoin, below 112. 112 was a major, major level of support. And right now it's dropping very aggressively. Ethereum hit an all-time high. And then what ended up happening the next day, we're down almost 10%. Solana also obviously did very, very well, but then dropped almost 10% as well. So these are not the most bullish signs. We're looking at crypto because crypto also has an influence on the overall market. If crypto is dropping like this, if the large tech stocks are at levels of support or hitting levels of resistance, not showing that much room to the upside, except what? Tesla and Google? A lot of this is going to be riding on Nvidia's earnings. Generally heading into... So once again, I'm just going to repeat it. The Russell showing a great short. Clear-cut bearish momentum out of the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. The large tech stocks are not showing that much strength. Crypto is also showing some weakness. And generally, number 5, heading into Wednesday, Nvidia should be bullish. I would be very, very surprised if we get a sell-off into earnings. that's life. If that ends up happening, that's life. But those are the 5 truths that we're seeing right now in the market. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff. And I will see you guys bright and early tomorrow morning. Have an amazing day. Thank you.